Pre-revolution timeline, the 1500s. Detail, 1540. 1540 to 1541, the first war between Native Americans and Europeans in the Southwest occurs between troops of Coronado and the Tewa Indians. The Tewesh War was waged near Bernalillo, New Mexico against the dozen pueblos of the tribe on the American and Mexican sides of the Rio Grande River. Francisco Vázquez de Coronado was exploring for Spain, looking for gold, and not making lots of friends amongst the Indian tribes of the Southwest. His expedition had encountered the Tewa Indians around the Rio Grande. The Tewa or Tanon tribes were clustered in a dozen or so pueblos on both sides of the river, each pueblo a multi-story town with up to 1,000 people, reaching to what would be today's Bernalillo, New Mexico, north of Albuquerque, and the surrounding northern Rio Grande region. Coronado would refer to only one of the pueblos by name. His term was Kufur, Gufur, or Tewesh. A later reference by others in the 17th century noted it as the Santiago Pueblo. It was one of the largest of the 12 or more Tewa pueblos. Coronado had 350 soldiers plus 350 other Europeans in his party and over 1,000 Indian allies from other tribes, Aztec, Purepecha, from Mexico. He also brought along 7,000 head of livestock. Yes, Coronado was searching for gold, as well as silver, silk, spices, and lands to turn into Spanish estates. Once in what is today's New Mexican territory, Coronado attacked the Zuni at their Hawica, Cibola, Pueblo, was almost killed, but prevailed. He was visited by a delegation from the Pecos Pueblo 150 miles to the east, who attempted to befriend and offered passage to the buffalo herds of the Great Plains. Coronado sent his aide, Hernando de Alvarado, 23 Spanish soldiers, and other Mexican Indians to visit the Pecos Pueblo and see the herds. Pecos was a pueblo of the Tewa. What Alvarado found along the way was the best land of the Tewa, irrigated acreage around the Rio Grande, north of today's Albuquerque. He suggested that Coronado make his winter headquarters on Tewa land. Coronado agreed, moving to his chosen location, the Kufur Pueblo. At first, the leader of the Tewa, known as Zaurian to his people, to the Spanish by the name Juan Alemán, agreed to allow Coronado to build shelters, straw huts, near the pueblo. By winter, with his men unsatisfied with the temporary quarters, Coronado commandeered the structures of the town, forcing the Tewa people to flee with only their clothes. Of course, this did not please Zaurian or his people. With Kufur as his military base, Coronado traded for supplies from the other pueblos nearby, Quirs and Tewa, but when the Tewa began to refuse due to their own needs, Coronado confiscated the rest, and abused their women. The Tewas responded by killing 40 to 60 horses and mules from the expedition in December 1540. That was enough for Coronado to declare all-out war. For the next year, his men attacked the various pueblos in the region. From Cuaua, now interpreted as Coronado Historic Site, the only actual Tewesh War battle site open to the public, to the battle at Arenal, where all Tewas engaged in the struggle were killed. At Mojo, several miles north of Kufur, their last stand atop a large mountain, the Tewa held out for 80 days as Coronado sieged the pueblo from January to March. Low on supplies, the Tewas tried to escape. Almost all of the Tewa warriors and women were killed, albeit a few of the women were spared to become Coronado's slaves. In all, hundreds of Tewa soldiers and civilians had been killed in the Tewesh War. By historic estimates, Coronado lost fewer. Coronado would leave in the spring to explore the Great Plains, allowing the Tewa to return. Once the expedition itself came back from their forays east, the Indians of the region battled again, around both the Rio Grande and other areas, losing their high mountain pueblo of Pecos, 7,000 feet in elevation. Guerrilla warfare was waged from their mountaintop hiding places against Coronado through the second winter encampment until Coronado decided in April 1542 to abandon his strategy in Tiwa and Taua territory and return to Mexico. The Spanish would not return for 39 years. Coronado National Memorial and Coronado Historic Site. Today, vestiges of the area history that surrounds the Tiwa vs. Coronado War can be visited at various sites. The Coronado Memorial along the border with Mexico in Arizona tells the story of Coronado's expedition, including the Tiwa War. There are not lasting remnants of the war or expedition there, but a visit to the vistas over the San Pedro River can revive the thoughts of 2,000 Spaniards and allies laying waste or their way to mythical gold cities. The park was founded on August 18, 1941. There is a visitor center, exhibits, trails, bookstore, and campsites at the park. Coronado Historic Site, located in Bernalillo at the northernmost pueblo of Kual. This site is the only open and interpreted site where you can learn about the Tiwa War on the actual location of one of the battles. There were 1,200 people living in this pueblo upon Coronado's arrival. Established in 1325 AD, the site was refound in the 1930s with an original kiva and 14 murals which are available to visit. It became the first New Mexico state monument in 1935. The Kual Pueblo existed after Coronado's expedition left for Mexico in 1542, but was abandoned after the Pueblo Revolt of 1680. The site contains a visitor center and is open year-round. The ruins of Kufur still exist, located on the west side of the Rio Grande River opposite the south end of the town of Bernalillo. There is a debate among historians about whether the Pueblo of Kufur is actually today's site of the Santiago Pueblo or another of the Bernalillo area pueblos lost to modern development. Who was Coronado? Francisco Vázquez de Coronado was the Spanish explorer who in 1540–1542 headed an expedition into New Mexico and the Great Plains states looking for one of the 7 lost cities of gold named Cibola. He became the first European to sight the Grand Canyon and the Colorado River. The expedition crossed the boundaries of what today are 8 states: Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Colorado, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, and Arkansas. Coronado had emigrated to the New World from Spain in 1535, headquartered in New Galicia as its governor within 4 years. New Galicia, Nuevo Galicia, would be today's Mexican states of Jalisco, Sinaloa, and Nayarit. His expedition began in the city of Compostela on February 23, 1540. He failed to find Cibola, or another city of expected wealth, Quivira, returning to Mexico in April of 1542. The expedition had cost him a fortune, with crimes of war brought against him resulting from battles with the Indians found along the journey, but he was acquitted. Image above, Coronado sets out for the north, painting by Frederick Remington, 1890–1900. Courtesy Wikipedia Commons. Photo below, Coronado's March, drawing by Frederick Remington, 1897. Courtesy Library of Congress. Source info, looking back 500 years, the Tiwa War, Ron Stewart, National Park Service, the Tiwa War of New Mexico, legendsofamerica.com, Kufur and Juan Alemán, Richard Flint and Shirley Cushing Flint, NewMexicoHistory.org, Coronado Historic Site, Wikipedia.